Every year, we celebrate Pongal or Sankranti on the 14th of January. Every year. But then why does Diwali, also a Hindu festival, fall on a different date each year? Then again, Christmas always falls on the 25th of December, but Ramzan does not even fall in the same month every year. Who sets these festival dates? Is there some logic to it? Our story today is about time, about how ancient Indians and people across the world measured time.
A long time ago, our prehistoric ancestors had a simple concept of time. When they were hungry, they went hunting, and when the sun set, they went to sleep. But all that changed about 7,000 years ago. Why? Because they started taking farming seriously. They had to think more long term, when to sow, water, and harvest. Just differentiating day from night would not cut it anymore. They had to know their seasons too. They didn't just need a clock, they needed a calendar. So the prehistoric men, and maybe women too, looked up at the sky and figured the sun was a great timekeeper. They observed that it took the Earth approximately 365 days to orbit the sun. So every day was approximately 12 hours of darkness plus 12 hours of light. But as farming evolved, they needed a shorter time marker. Shorter than a year, but longer than a day. And so they looked at the moon. It takes approximately 30 days for the moon to orbit the Earth. That became a month. So a thumb rule evolved. In the time the Earth does one round of the sun, the moon goes around the Earth 12 times. So 12 months make 1 year.
Simple? But wait, 12 months don't exactly add up to 1 year. The solar year is 365 days long, but the moon takes only 354 days to go around the Earth 12 times. So the lunar year is 11 days shorter. How do you reconcile the two? And to nitpick more, the moon takes not 30 days, but about 29.5 days to go around the Earth. The Earth takes not exactly 365 days, but just a wee bit longer to go around the Sun. And over longer periods, these small differences add up. Now, it's not that astronomers across the world did not know this. But these approximations were good enough, and they served us well for thousands of years. But over time, each society decided to deal with these approximations differently. The Arab mathematicians decided to ignore the sun completely and just followed the moon. They designed their months to be 29 or 30 days long. So their calendar year has only 354 days. But it means that Ramzan constantly falls 11 days earlier than the previous year, and they were okay with it. Theirs is a lunar calendar. Some Indian communities like the Tamils, Punjabis and Bengalis followed the sun. Theirs is a solar calendar, and their new year is always on April 14th, the day the sun enters the constellation of Aries. What does that mean exactly? It simply means that if you looked up at the sky during that period, you will find the sun to be closer to the Aries constellation than all others. Physically, they may be very far apart, but from the Earth, it appears that they are roughly in that same neighborhood.
Meanwhile, the West was still struggling with all these approximations. In 1582, Pope Gregory XIII came up with a new idea, a new solar calendar with an extra day added every 4 years as a rounding correction, the leap year. That is the calendar we follow all over the world today. It is called the Gregorian calendar. But let me tell you a secret. The Christian festival of Easter still follows the moon, not just the sun, and so it falls on a different date every year. Even the Pope could not change that. What about Hindus? Like other ancient cultures, Hindus too spent a good deal of time looking at the night sky. By the 5th century CE, Hindu calendars had become fairly sophisticated thanks to brilliant mathematicians like Aryabhatta. His calculations of the length of the day and year are astonishingly close to values that are accepted today. These astronomers recognized that both the sun and the moon had a role to play in calendars. So, Hindu calendars are lunisolar, meaning some festivals depend on the moon and some on the sun.
The festival of Diwali is celebrated on the new moon day of the Indian month of Kartika, which falls between October and November. And that's why the festival falls on a different date each year. On the other hand, the harvest festivals of Pongal and Makara Sankranti follow the position of the sun. Makara Sankranti is the day the sun enters the constellation of Capricorn or Makara and starts its journey northwards. So it always falls on the 14th of January. Well, almost always. It also shifts slightly.
But strictly speaking, there is no one Hindu calendar. There are about 30 regional variations. By and large, most of North India follows the Vikram Samvat, while South India follows the Shaka calendar. The months are the same in both calendars and they appear in the same order, but the new year starts at a different point in each calendar. Let's break this down a little bit, shall we?
The Vikram Samvat calendar begins on the day of Diwali. So for many North Indians, Diwali is New Year.
But it depends on the moon, and the new year falls on a different day each year.
The Shaka calendar, on the other hand, starts on March 22nd every year. That's called the spring equinox, the day the sun is directly over the equator and day and night are of equal length.
So it depends on the sun, and it falls on the same day every year.
Exactly. Many cultures across the world celebrate their New Years on equinox.
But then, why do Tamils, Punjabis and Bengalis celebrate their New Year not on March 22nd but on April 14th?
Good question. That's because even within solar calendars, there are different ways of marking time. March 22nd is equinox, but exactly 23 days later, on April 14th, the sun enters the constellation of Aries, the very first constellation in calendars across the world. And that day is celebrated as Puthandu, Vishu, Baisakhi and Bihu. New Year for Tamils, Malayalees, Punjabis and Assamese.
But not for Telugus, Kannadigas and Marathis.
Correct. Again. Their new year, Ugadi or Gudi Padawa, follows a lunisolar calendar, meaning it follows both the sun and the moon. It also takes March 22nd or equinox as the starting point. And then they look at when the next lunar month starts, the first new moon after equinox. The next morning is celebrated as Ugadi, literally meaning the beginning of a new era. Brings up the question, is one calendar system better than the other? Well, they all do the job, but no calendar is perfect. All of them have to use some adjustment or the other to reconcile the days, the months, the seasons and the years.
Wouldn't our lives be much simpler if we just followed one system?
But what's the fun in that? Why give up on all those holidays? But that's what the Indian government did in 1957 when a team led by an astrophysicist came up with an updated version of the Shaka calendar, mainly to standardize the festival dates. And that is the official Hindu calendar in India today. But for all practical purposes, India too follows the Gregorian calendar, which starts on the 1st of January. So how does one keep track of festival dates if they keep changing every year? For this, every Hindu household has an almanac. Well, at least most did in pre-Google days. It is called the Panchangam, and it charts out every celestial event. When is the next lunar eclipse? The Panchangam will tell you. What time is sunrise next Wednesday? The Panchangam will tell you.
Speaking of sunrise, here's a trick question for you. When exactly does a day start? In the Hindu calendar, a new day begins whenever the sun rises, so it's at a different time every day. But in the Gregorian calendar, the day begins precisely at 12 a.m., just after midnight of the previous day. The Arab Islamic calendar ignores the sun altogether. They don't look at daybreak at all. Instead, they follow the night break. An Arab day begins at sunset. Isn't it amazing that in the 21st century, the whole world can't agree on something as fundamental as what day is it today?
Did you like that story? Do like, share and subscribe to our channel, and we'll be back with many more fascinating stories of India.